Oh, it is.
Hello, everyone. And for those who are listening, welcome to the Nag Personal Training podcast. So today we've got an awesome guest on. First guest in such a long time. Her name is Brogan. She's experienced working with pre and postnatal. Same as me, we're both big on menopause health as well, and fitness, and also biomechanics, which I'm really interested with these questions, for your feedback you're going to give on these questions. Again, thank you, Naglets, for sending in such amazing questions. No question is a stupid question, because someone said, I feel like this is a stupid question I've sent in, but as you know, Brogan, don't ask, don't get. And there might be somebody out there who's not brave enough to ask that question, and you've done that for them. Even if it's not the answer you want, at least you're going to get the correct answer, and we will help you as best as we can. So I'm going to introduce Brogan. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So Brogan, if you introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, your dog.
Oh yeah, my dog. I mean, it's not just been the previous 10 minutes of us talking about dogs anyway. I think you did a fabulous introduction. Thank you. And thank you for letting me bully you and say, hey, can I come on your podcast? Yeah, exactly that. So I have spent probably about 10 years in the industry now, working as a consultant and group fitness instructor for most of it. So I've helped a lot of gyms build their sales and run their businesses better. And now, over the last couple of years, just started focusing more on what I enjoy the most, which is group and one-on-one and helping people and trying to change the fitness industry. It's still one of those industries that's just full of crud most of the time, and it's a real very polite. I know that was the non-explicit version, but
it's swear on the podcast, just so you know.
Oh, I like it. I know you like a swear word as well. Well, it's total shit, basically. Total shit. And there's still so much confusion around women's health. So that's why I started Women Within Fitness. And the biomechanics side of things has just fallen in quite nicely with, I think, a lot of, side effects from pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause that women go through. So it's kind of fallen into place.
Very cool. So I was just speaking up before you move on there. It was interesting. I read a post this morning. It was because as those who don't know, I do jiu-jitsu. And it was saying how women, particularly in combative sports, especially, need to strength train more than ever. And you probably find that when you do your assessments. I'd like to get you to do an assessment on me. I'm just curious for prehab to prevent injury, because like we say, we're more prone to ACL tears because we're small and don't develop muscle as fast as men. We can, but just do it slower. We are more injury prone in general. I sparred, I did a fight on the weekend, and I could tell because of my weight training, it gave me the extra edge. Which probably helped me with the win, because she was good. She was really good. I thought if she gets strong and she starts weightlifting, she would have been more of a handful for me. But being 34 and she was 19, I think if I was 34 and not done any weight training, I could have got really badly injured. But that really helped my recovery. I feel good today. I'm just battered and bruised. So I'm absolutely with you on the biomechanics with females, particularly, especially now the research is developing on the difference between male and female health in regards to training, rehab, strengthening. It's so important that it needs to be separated, actually.
100%. And I think, exactly what you've touched on there. And the problem with the biomechanics side of thing is that for a lot of the time I do promote it to people who experience joint pain, because that seems to be my biggest demographic. And they're the people I love working with, because it's a very, very kind of nice area to be in when you can help people and get rid of that joint pain. But the biomechanics is brilliant, like what you said, for sports specific, because I do it for myself, and I do a lot of weight training. And
you're doing CrossFit now, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's sport is part of it.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like because of the background that I'm in, I watch people and I listen to these stories of people tripping over boxes and dropping weights on their heads, and I do everything in my power not to make that happen, because it fills me with the heebie-jeebies. But I've had to start looking after hip health, pelvic health, and understand that there can be an imbalance between left and right.
Like mobile, aren't we? We have more relaxing for our bodies. Even when you're not pregnant, you do. So again, that's why the risk is so high in our hips and knees.
Exactly. So it's exactly like I said, it's very beneficial to add in, even if you're not experiencing joint pain. How do we prevent these injuries? How do we actually perform better? And how do we perform better and get better at what we love?
Absolutely. So we're going to answer your amazing questions. We've got quite a few to get through. We'll hopefully try to get through all. So here's the first one for you, Brogan. So this is what my client sent in. My energy levels have changed over the past few years. I'm 44. I now get regular migraines and seem to find more things stressful. I've just started HRT, but should I be changing how I exercise?
It was a very good question, because I think there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of perimenopause support groups actually out there on Facebook. So this is just a heads up for anyone who is experiencing that, and the same for pre and postnatal. There are massive major support groups on Facebook that are free to join. There's 30 to 40,000 members, and everybody talks about all the different things they experience, and the side effects are wild. They're very vast from one extreme to the other. So yeah, so individual, and a reminder that actually, if you think something feels weird and you're the only person in the world who's experiencing it, I guarantee there's someone else who's experiencing the same thing. With regards to changing exercise, yes. So I absolutely promote this. It depends what your current program is like at the moment. The best program I can put forward to you is definitely one that encourages mobility and movement and stretch, because not only are we experiencing these joint pains, more so in perimenopause and menopause, but by the time we've kind of hit that stage in our life, we may have moved in the same movement patterns and sat at the same job or driven the same amount of miles for 35, 40 years. You know, it's the same. We've walked the same way, we've moved the same way, we've trained the same way. So that is another reason why injury and joint pain comes to fruition. So you definitely add more weights, get into mobility. And I've just written some notes here as well. So hardcore workouts. I think the next thing is like hardcore workouts. People want to try and do the same workouts they were doing 20 years ago, which mine have certainly adapted. But I think as long as you're getting the recovery there, whether it's rest and your food and your nutrition, you could still keep doing them. And hopefully, because I think in the question as well, you just started HRT. So hopefully now with that balance, and give it a couple of weeks, because it's almost like a cycle. Like you've got to wait for that balance. Yeah, so that might help the migraines once that started to balance out a little bit. But well done for getting in and, you know, getting yourself sorted with some HRT for sure.
Excellent. And like I say, she is weight training, which I love already. She our coach herself.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah, want to keep going as long as possible. You know, yeah, but you're absolutely right. I agree with the whole nutrition and recovery. It's very underrated. For example, I'm sore and I'm tight from the fight, and I know sleep and nutrition are going to be key to my recovery. Anything extra is just a top up. You know, even massage isn't going to cure it. It'll be nice to have one, which I've a simple one this week. Knocks out my body. But I know, as we all know, the key to recovery, and like I say, I think with menopause, like you mentioned there, recovery is a little bit longer. I've even found now in my 30s, my recovery is a little bit slower than it was in my 20s.
Yeah. I think everyone always says to me that, I don't know if you get this golden question as well from clients, but how often do you train? How often do you train? And I go 4 times a week. Like, I am not training more than that because I walk the dog and I'm doing everything else.
Don't remember the factors.
So I want enough days rest that I'm not burnt out by the end of the week. You know, I've not ruined my body. I've not got DOMs every day. I don't want that. I've got other things to do. So yeah, I think there's this misconception that it's got to be 6 days a week of training.
Or nothing.
Or nothing. Yeah. And it's not the case, especially not for me anyway.
Yeah.
I've got better things to do. Sit in the pub.
Exactly. We've all got lives to live. Very, really well answered. Love that take on that. So next, I love how she started this. Oh my God, let's begin with perimenopause and getting joint aches. It's a bit similar probably to like the first question, but biomechanics might come into this now. Perimenopausal, getting joint aches, sometimes really painful. Can I do myself any injury just trying to push through in terms of PT and kickboxing, not just today stuff?
Yes, this was a really good question actually, and I wrote quite a lot on this as well. So again, yes, I did touch on the last one. Joint aches and pains are a very common side effect. You see a lot of it when you read reports, and also on these support groups, a very common side effect. So it's not unusual to experience that. And the reason why we tend to more through perimenopause is that during perimenopause, estrogen is fluctuating. So it's peaking and troughing and peaking and troughing. And then menopause is basically signed off, so to speak, as when you have not experienced a period for 12 months or longer. And therefore, you're at the point where your estrogen is the lowest. But during that perimenopause is when it is literally spiking and dropping every single day.
Oh, the blood test is shit.
It's like, just no wonder there's just so many hot flushes and feeling like crap and all these other things, fatigue. But estrogen is very good at helping us protect our bones and also reduce inflammation around joints. So when it's at its lowest, we've got inflammation that builds up. So that could be a reason why, a very good link as to why we experience it more. So my answer back was, do you include much mobility and stretch in your daily workouts? It still comes back to strength training, because especially, and you'll know this, with maintaining as much bone density as we can, keeping the joints mobile. I think the problem is, yes, you want to keep moving, because it's almost like, when people hurt their backs and, maybe doctors.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, someone says, oh, just rest it. And it can sometimes be the opposite. The worst thing you can do, you want to keep moving. So you want to keep those joints supple. So absolutely, you want to keep training. But joint pain shouldn't be ignored. It's your body's very clever way of saying to you, alert, basically, this shouldn't feel like this. So there are ways of looking at it. And I also wrote about nutrition as well, because there are ways to boost nutrition on foods that are estrogen boosting foods, things like flaxseed, soya. And like, these are, I've got a friend who I work with, and she's, I think, probably about 48, so she is either pretty much going through perimenopause at the moment, or slowly. Yeah, she is. I think because she's like, oh, I've got my period, and I'm like, oh, good, nice one.
That's like my mate who I coach with, Kate. She's the same. It's like, oh, is it this month? Is it not? It's like Russian.
I know, like guessing game, bingo, period bingo. But she bloody loves soya milk. Like, she swears by it, and soya and tofu, dried fruit, dates, prunes, which actually, when you read it, is a really interesting link back to pregnancy, because they tell you to start eating dates. I think dates.
So I've started doing more soy in my diet anyway early on, because apparently doing it early is quite ideal if you can. So those who aren't hitting perimenopause yet, there is some science about doing it early on as well is beneficial. Keep it. So I rotate my milk. I'll sometimes have soy, sometimes go back to milk. Because milk's still great anyway. It's high in calcium. Just switching it back and forth.
It's actually a really great comment what you've just said there, because my whole mantra is about preparing women for what's coming in the future. So, even though it might sound like we're only speaking towards women who are currently pregnant or currently in perimenopause, like, why aren't we educating females on this when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, how to best prepare your body for carrying a baby, for delivering a baby, and so on and so forth. So 100% agree with that. Preparing is the best way forward.
Yeah. Anything else to add to that one?
No, just looking at nutrition. No, that was everything.
Nutrition one's a brilliant one, though. You're spot on there again. Next one. This is a great one, because I've seen studies on this as well. I don't know if you have. Does your metabolism slow down because of menopause, hence middle age spread, or is it just an age thing?
So I actually found this one. This is one of those ones that makes my brain go, because I think when you look at different people, again, it's very independent. And I think, I don't know, part of me wants to say that this is just one of those things that your mum tells you and then you tell your children, and it just gets handed down.
Self-prophesy.
Yeah.
Self-prophesy.
Exactly. Like, I remember my mum specifically saying to me in my 20s, oh, you look good now, but wait until you hit your mid-30s and it'll go downhill. And I actually think I look better now than I did in my mid-20s. So there's got to be something going on there. And I think it's our attitude towards health and fitness has changed. How females train has completely transformed over the last 30 years from, Rosemary Connolly DVDs and workout classes to women getting into the gym and doing weights. But yes, less estrogen is linked to less muscle mass, lean muscle mass, which can affect obviously calories burnt at rest. And you'll be with me on this one, I'm sure. Which is why then it links back to why it's so important to actually add resistance training into this time of your life, because not only is it going to completely change your body composition, and I think that's another thing with this, it's that same kind of archaic way of looking at the only way I'm going to measure my success is through the scales. And that is a big, and that is a big thing that I try and just promote with any of my clients, to say, well, no, have you lifted heavier? Are you eating better? Do you actually fit in your trousers better? Because you could still be the same weight on there, but actually your measurements and whatever else has changed. So it's definitely the time to, if you don't already, introduce resistance training into your workouts, and also look at your protein, because protein is going to help maintain that muscle mass as well.
We bang on about that all the time, my clients. It's like hammered in their head about protein. It's like, come on, every meal, stop just having toast for breakfast. Oh, well, I'm okay, but even then I might have a protein shake with it at least.
Yeah.
That you like.
Yeah. It's so easy now with snacks and bars.
Yeah. The only thing I've read about it is that they did an amazing, I'll have to find it for you unless you've already read it. They did a study on like from age of like toddler to like 90 over a 10-year period. And they found that metabolism in men and women pretty much didn't change until they were 60. I thought it was a very good study. It was a really good pool how they did it. It's the biggest study I think ever done for it. The other thing we've also, I don't know if you've read about this as well, the reason women store more fat around the tummy, it's not that they're putting weight on, it's where you store fat is different as well, because estrogen, it likes to store where there's fat. Now, when you're young and plump, you tend to have estrogen receptors all over your body, where it means we carry fat well. That's why we can have higher fat percentages than men and not get heart disease, because you don't carry all our tummy like men do. But when we get to menopause or perimenopause, you're more at risk of heart disease, because then estrogen then seems to be more prominent around the stomach area. So because it's more there, that's why you store more fat then, and rather on your arms and your legs. So sometimes I've seen where women have got mega muscle wastage and fat wastage around their limbs, but not their torso, because that's more body fat.
Yeah, 100%. That seems to be the area that everybody wants to work on, is stomach. And I think one of the things, you know, to go along with those studies, because I would love to read them.
Yeah, I'll try to find it for you.
Yeah, find me the link. Is that I think the first go-to is to try and cut fat from their diet completely, because it's almost this demonization that fat is the reason why. Yeah, it's this demonization that fat is the reason why I'm fat, and it's crap, because, you know, we know now that actually cholesterol is linked directly to the production of hormones. So when you're in a position where estrogen is dropping low and you've got these, you know, hot flushes and all these other side effects, cutting that from your diet completely, thinking it's the right thing to do for weight loss, is actually detrimental. And is, you know, the same reason why if someone is in such a calorie deficit where they would be considered having an eating disorder, their reproductive system shuts down, because it's you know, the body needs to prioritize that energy to somewhere else. So, you know, that's quite an extreme example, but it just goes to show that it does actually will shut and stop hormone production if you're cutting major food groups out.
Yeah, I mean, the female hormones are like, compared to men, it's very direct. Like you said, it's very linked with fuel, should we say, is the best way to put it. Like, studies now looking at women who are exercising, fasted, which if you had a big meal the night before, it's okay, but they're doing it to try and lose fat. I saw a woman outside the leisure centre ages ago. I know she's postmenopausal, and she had to come out of class early because she felt a bit faint. She goes, oh, did you have anything to eat before you went in? No, I want to do 2 classes back to back, which I see all the time since working in the industry. And I'm like, you fuel. I said, you're just fucking yourself over there. I'm like, I know you want to lose weight, even though she was very lean anyway. And look, I'll support people wanting to look more toned and muscular. I get that, but yeah, we're very dependent on our. That's why women, you'll see us eating all day compared to men. Men can go like hours without eating and be absolutely fine. Women just can't do it. I wouldn't go into my competition what I went on the weekend fasted. No way, my performance would have been.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I fueled myself well. Even with the weigh-in, I fueled up for stuff. If I'm heavier, I'll fight a heavier weight class, because I'd rather go in feeling 100% than feeling like shit.
Yeah, and you know, like you say, with the difference between men and women's training, you know, this whole fasted thing was very much tailored around a man's
early men's studies.
Exactly. It's all good fun, isn't it?
But now they've done it on women and realise it's not a great idea.
Exactly. But, you know, even they say now that, you know, with men, because they have testosterone that spikes early in the morning, you know, they've got more energy than us. So this is your key ladies.
Energy into that get up and go, where we take a bit longer for females.
Exactly. So this is your this as your excuse to stay in bed a bit longer.
It's also why women feel, I hate using motivation, but it is like a drive. Like men have that drive in them, whereas women, especially when you hit the perimenopause, because you also get a dip in testosterone, which is like your driver. Like the amount of women I've coached now who have gone on testosterone, because you lose all 3 hormones, not just 2. You have all 3, just like men do. They have all 3, and they've had reduced joint pain. They have more drive. They want to work longer. Some of them have changed careers, and these are women in their 60s. You know, I've got one woman, she's got a very active dog. and she's about to retire. I say retire, she's got another job.
Standard.
Not working as much, but she can, because she's got that drive, she's got the energy to get up and go. But she has done everything she should do, like, you know, nutrition, sleep. She's got everything. She's just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna, you know, sadly she had to go private, but she's got the testosterone as well as the estrogen and progesterone as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. We should add that, you know, we could sit here till the cows come home and say, yeah, well, you know, training better and eating better and doing this will make you feel better. But at the end of the day, if medication is going to be the thing that, you know, gives you that energy, reduces your side effects, makes you feel a bit more human again, then absolutely you should fire away on it and then go and have that discussion.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. This is more pre and postnatal. I'm quite excited about these ones because this is very new for me because I only recently qualified pre and postnatal this year. So this one, the first one is, any tips for exercising after a C-section?
Yes, I like this a lot. It's a great question. So post C-section, gone are the days of the archaic way of looking at that. You know, you have to wait 12 weeks before you could start anything. No, I wouldn't advise, you know, lifting 60 kilos above your head 4 weeks after having a C-section, but there are certainly things you can do to help benefit your recovery and therefore put you in a better position for when you do go back to the gym or whatever your chosen activity is. So I wrote a couple down. Now, the first one I would always look at is pelvic floor, and everyone's going to go pelvic floor, but she had a C-section.
So
right. Even if it's not a vaginal birth, you know, you've had 9 exactly right. You've had 9 months of a baby banging around on your pelvic floor. So, you know, it's a hammock that's been heavily stressed, especially in that last trimester. So yeah, 100%, because what that's going to do is help with your core work, you know, get you stronger again for whatever activity you enjoy, but especially weightlifting. Deep core and breathing activation. So I know we spoke about this as well, but when you carry a baby, it is obviously very much on the front of the body and it can impact how you breathe. So
yes. Oh, this is so cool. And I read on this.
Yeah, it's like super interesting. And I've spoken to a lot of postpartum women who actually come to me and go, actually, it's weird you should say that, because I'm like 6 years postpartum and I still go to the gym, but I find myself getting really out of breath. And it's basically because the baby is squishing all your organs and it changes. It can give you really shallow breaths or it can give you really deep breaths, so kind of down in your abdomen.
It's a diaphragm breathing you have to work on when I've looked at the
so it's kind of filling up here in the ribs rather than too low or too high, because this is going to be a shallow breath. And if it's quite low, it can actually impact your recovery with diastasis. So if you probably all have ab separation, but if you suffer with diastasis, which is where it doesn't come back together as naturally as it should do, that deep breathing is just going to keep opening that wall, and you know, it's never going to give it the chance to properly heal. So understanding your deep core and very gentle deep core work, you know, we're not talking crunches or Russian twists.
What examples would you give for this one?
So you could start with just being on like all fours, so kind of hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, and literally just start in that position practicing your breathing. So it would be and this is how you can integrate core as well and pelvic floor. So
there's a lot of pressure already been there, hasn't there, on the diastasis recti, so it's already hard as it is, isn't it, that position? Yeah, so it's one of those that you might adapt this slightly if someone had actually come to you with, because everybody will suffer with some form of ab separation anyway during pregnancy, but if it's slowly coming back together again, then it's good. It's when it doesn't and you still have that gap. Right. But you want this inhale and exhale. So as you breathe in, you're relatively relaxed. Okay, so pelvic floor and core is relaxed, and as you exhale, you simultaneously you want to imagine like a hammock. Front bum and back bum is how we like to describe it, and you're going to squeeze both of it and then in and up. So basically you've got the front pelvic and kind of round the back, and they come together and lift up, and then as you breathe in, it relaxes, exhale, pull. So you're actually integrating core and pelvic floor there, which is way more beneficial for you than just sitting on the sofa and just squeeze, release, squeeze, release. It's like a realistic sort of position, isn't it? Like if you want to get back to core work eventually as well.
Yeah, and then you can start adding things like bird dog in with it, you know, with that breathing technique. Yeah, and then once you've done that, you would go back to your squats with that breathing technique. So actually your pelvic floor becomes a lot more responsive to activity you enjoy, as opposed to just doing it on the sofa, and then the minute you go out and try and do some bodyweight squats, there's incontinence or a risk of incontinence.
That's really cool, because I actually didn't read anything. I don't think there was anything that on the course about doing it during an activity. You just simply go on all fours. They said you can stand or sit, like, but I think that's way more practical what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Pausing and just
it means that it's then a bit more responsive, which is nobody wants to be on the trampoline or playing with the kids and suffering, need a new pair of pants. So by actually integrating it into exercise, it responds a lot better.
So it's benefit for the C-section and the pelvic floor at the same time. It's like
100%.
Very simple though. It's, like you say, it's nothing like doing loads. I mean, I wouldn't do this anyway, because on the course didn't advise this anyway, but not doing loads of sit-ups, Russian twists, anything like that.
You've got to take your time, be kind to yourself, and have a bit of and another thing that's come quite interestingly over the last couple of months I've spotted is C-section scar desensitization.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you've seen this, but I think that is huge, because I think they're doing it a lot more in the States. So I see it a lot more on Instagram over there. But the idea that you kind of run a feather over it.
My client who messaged this went through this and did this.
Very good. Yeah, because you still meet people that are 5 or 10 years down the line from a C-section, and they'll do an abs move and they'll go, oh, it's pulling on my scar, and you think that's not right. Like, I just don't think we don't get very good aftercare anyway, really.
It's like, there you go, bye. You're alive and have a baby, go home.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always something I would look into as well. So that's very good. I would love to know more about it, to be honest.
Same.
Very
cool. She was lucky. She had quite a good aftercare actually as clients. Her surgeon who did the C-section was brilliant with her. She could actually return to exercise sooner because it healed so well. And it was actually, I think it's, again, technology's changing, especially in the medical world since COVID. Everything's been pumped through like money into that side of it. And she said like, I wasn't as big or anything either. She had a really, really good I mean, like I say, she go for a second pregnancy now. It's a little bit sooner than she thought it was going to be, so she was a bit concerned about like a scarring. You're not supposed to do it too soon. It wasn't on purpose. But she's doing okay so far. She's doing really well.
Good.
Let's move on to the next one, which is quite nicely linked. Best exercise for pelvic girdle pain.
Yes. So was this from the same lady?
Yeah, it was actually.
So it's experiencing it now. So pelvic girdle pain is is horrible from what I've heard. I have never had children, but I do have a lot of clients who have experienced it. And you've got a couple of things going on. The biomechanics inside your pelvis and your lower back changes significantly when you're pregnant. You imagine if you strap a load of cushions to the front of your stomach, it's going to create more curvature in the lower back. It's going to create a tilting forward in your pelvis. So biomechanically things change a lot. And then, like you touched on earlier, Nat, you've got relaxin that builds in the body, and that just progressively gets more and more as you go through pregnancy. So your body is actively fighting against you. It's trying to limber everything up when actually we want to try and keep things as strong as we can. So I had a client the other day who, bless her, she's had one of these pregnancies where it's just been one drama after the other. She's still
it's not always like that, by the way, folks.
No,
most go pretty well. You always hear the horror stories.
I know, I'm sorry. And I've met plenty of clients that have had lovely pregnancies, but bless her, she's just been ill. She's not stopped being ill yet, and she's about 32 weeks, and she's just had a rough time of it. But she was really suffering, probably about 20 weeks with pelvic girdle pain. And so we looked at a couple of things. We looked at hip mobility to start. Then we just did a load of banded work. So hip flexion, hip extension, looking at all the different ways that the pelvis actually would move and strengthening those areas. Because she was at a point where she couldn't even get out of the car. It was just causing her that much pain.
Is it a lot of glute strength, would you say, then, as well, by the sounds of it? It's all from the hip, isn't it?
I would, 100%. So if you can, if you think you've got relax in there that's trying to soften everything up, what you want to do is strengthen the surrounding muscle around the joint so that it is, exactly that. Cool. And we did a bit of sciatic nerve stuff as well, which seemed to help her a lot, actually. But she hadn't experienced sciatica before, so it's slightly different if you have. But we did a little bit of sciatic nerve work, but definitely just so simple, just medium light band, lots of reps, just getting everything fired up. And within kind of the half an hour session, she was moving a lot better and felt a lot better.
I'm trying it with a Friday.
Do it.
do a bit more glute. I mean, I did a lot of glute work with my other clients who I've stayed with for full term pretty much. And near the end, we were doing a lot more band and glute work, just really high reps. She didn't have too much pelvic girdle pain, but I was doing it more as prevention. Had a really good pregnancy throughout. Birth was a bit trickier. She's okay now, everything's fine. I mean, sadly, she had to, sadly, a lot of women in particular have to pay out privately to do it, but she had the money, she's like, stuff it. She went private physio, because that's something that doesn't get spoken about after birth. You know, it's a big thing to go through. You know, pelvic floor specialists, especially if your physio is qualified and that, or let's understand even better. A bonus. There is a few around where I live that are, and obviously, like I say, you probably know quite a lot about yourself because of your qualifications and experience. I'm more than happy referring to you as well, but if needed as well.
Yeah, I always send my postpartum clients to a women's health physio afterwards. You know,
if it's where you are, don't mind me asking.
So I'm on a Facebook group which is just women's health physios, and it just basically I'll just pop in there. I've got a client here, can you help them? Because they can do internal pelvic floor, you know, they can do a lot more than I can as well.
Yeah, we definitely need to connect a lot more, because like I said, it's not known, and maybe it's hard for them to be found, should we say, because it's very specific.
It is very, 100%.
Awesome. Right, glute work basically for the booty.
Yeah, glute work. Sorry in advance if your ass hurts on the weekend.
Yeah, so sorry. This is a great question as well. Again, I'm glad they've asked this question. Can I train away my overhang from an abdominal surgery? I think the answer is no, but might be interesting one for us to answer. Yeah,
I think this is a big kind of conversational topic. Now, I know we'd spoken about this beforehand as well, because I was like, I think we have to remember, first of all, that C-section is major abdominal surgery, and that is kind of taken away from us as women, where, you know, if anyone else was
nothing, isn't it, almost like people are like, oh, cutting it's open, it's like, no.
Exactly,
a lot of muscle.
If you were going in for deep abdominal surgery for any other reason other than it just getting a baby out, the recovery time, you'd probably be kept in hospital for a lot longer. You know, not 48 hours and you're out the door again. Mad. So it is totally baffling. It is totally baffling. So there's a few things to think about here. Number one, abdominal surgery, and it really depends on how that surgery went and how you were stitched back up. It's a bit like scarring anywhere else in the body.
I was about to say, my missus had appendicitis when she was younger, and she says, like, because of where the scarring sits, it creates like an overhand look almost. So it's very similar, actually. Like, yeah, we were just talking about today, me and the missus were.
Yeah, and I think it's bang on, because, you know, my other half, he had an operation on his hip when he was a kid. I don't even know what for. I wasn't listening very well when he told me. But the same thing, it has that kind of indentation and a lip over it, and it's just scar tissue. It's scarring where the skin's had to adjust and everything else. So, you know, sometimes there is literally no exercise really that we can think of. When you look at how you can train, and I know we spoke about this, it's training to actually, how can you make your core stronger? Because that's probably going to be something that is just impacted from pregnancy anyway. Yeah. So, you know, deep abdominals, transverse abdominals, you know, your planks, anything that's going to help support your back and get you strong. But at the end of the day, I think just generally as women, we need to be a bit kinder to ourselves and just understand that our body is changing.
That how we should look after, especially when you see these celebrities like after they've given birth and they're suddenly okay. A lot of it's probably airbrush, folks. If I'm dead honest with you, we only see a window of what's happening, and also we've got different lives, and also genetics is another factor as well with birth. Like some women I know, you can't even tell they were pregnant before, and then some women who I know who do weight training, they still, you know, got like almost like an excess skin after having babies, natural birth. You know, because like I have people going, oh, how much is that and how much is fat? I guess I think a lot of it is probably just stretch from the skin. It's like someone being very overweight for a long time, you know. They get a lot of skin stretch, and that's why they tend to have surgery. I've known women who have had surgery post-pregnancy because they've had a lot of excess skin, because you can't lose excess skin. It's not fat, it's skin. You know, over time we lose that elasticity anyway. You know, I'm not saying you have to have surgery, but if it's something you're going to have, make sure you get the right support. I have supported clients who have had to have it done. One had a tummy tuck recently, but she was in a good place to have it done. She's doing weight training. She's a PT herself now. She's in place. She's come from an eating disorder background as well. So for her, what everything she's gone through, she's made sure she's in a good headspace and has a great lifestyle to support the recovery. Now she's back weight training. She had a 100-mile bike ride for charity in London the other week.
Fair play.
Post surgery. Oh, she's taking the time to get back there.
Yeah.
Her body is far better, which you promote this as well. Weight training. I mean, I think there is actually, again, a study on this, like people who do weight training compared to people who just do cardio, who has a better self-confidence about their physiques. And they found that it was with women as well, not just men, that people had more body confidence and self-confidence built up through weight training because of the changes in body capability. And you can't burn a lot of calories doing weight training. So you're not training for calorie burn, you're training for capability.
100%. Yeah, I really like that. I think, you know, we've just got we've got to be more confident in, you know, how our bodies change. There was something I was going to, that was it. So it's funny you should say about, you know, someone, if they'd lost a lot of weight, experiencing the same things, because I learned something the other day from a friend of mine who I go to the gym with. She actually experienced diastasis and had, she's had some surgery done now to take off some excess skin because she lost a lot of weight, but she experienced diastasis from just being overweight. So she'd never been pregnant. I did not know this. So she taught me this. So the body pretty much goes through a similar thing. You imagine you're gaining lots of abdominal fat mass. She had exactly the same thing happen. So she had the surgery to kind of bring that back together again. But
did not know that.
New news to me as well.
Wow.
There you go.
You'd be asking around. I bet some people wouldn't know unless they went for the surgery. Interesting. That is very body, man. It's just, again, it's an adaptation, isn't it? It's always, you know, that is very cool. Did not know that. I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but it's amazing.
Yeah, no, I know. It blew my mind as well.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, you listen to you every day, man. We've got one more question. You know this one. I love what she put here. She put, "I hope you're okay. I've met Brogan. She's sound." What a lovely feedback. I guess my question is around spot training. That isn't spot training. So she put, so I know you can't, but after having a baby, you're more than likely to have excess fat and skin around the tummy area, like we just spoke about. Whilst I know 100 sit-ups a day won't do anything if I lost, for example, a stone, is there a way of making sure it came off the tummy? Probably a stupid question. Like we just said, it's not. Somebody out there is going to be thinking that and want to know the answer. What can we do?
If I had £1 for every time I heard this question, that should be your indication that you are not the only person who thinks the same thing. And I'm sure even as professionals, we still get the same thing. There's certain areas on my body that I know when I'm training well and I'm training hard and I'm eating well, there will be certain areas that I will drop fat like no tomorrow, and certain areas, just for me it's the abdomen as well. No, for me it's the abdomen. You know, unfortunately the boobs and the arse goes first, and it's bloody gutting. I'm like, oh, it's so annoying. So long and short, no, I don't think anyone can promise you that you're going to be able to spot reduce in a certain area, because they would be lying, I think, if they said that.
There's so much science behind this as well. Like there's been studies done every year on spot reduction on women as well. And it's just no improvement. It just does nothing. It doesn't make it faster. You can't direct it. It's really annoying. If we could do it, we would be very rich right now, me and Brogan.
I know.
Oh, we found a solution.
We would be. But no, I agree with you. And I think, you know, I've put everybody's different again, because everybody is so different. That's why we have all these different shapes. You know, some people carry weight more on the hips or on their boobs, and, you know, loads of different things. With regards to postpartum training, so I think when you look at postpartum as well, and this was quite an interesting thing that I learned when I was doing my postpartum recovery, is that in that time between when you've given birth and, you know, those first couple of weeks / kind of 12 weeks, how are you rehabbing your body first and foremost? So changing that narrative from how do I get back to my workouts, how do I lose weight as quick as possible, how do I get back to my pre-baby body as quick as I can, to how do I fuel my body to produce hormones to regulate. Because not a lot of people know that actually, I think it's 48 hours after giving birth, your estrogen drops as low as someone going through menopause.
I didn't know that.
So for like 48 hours. So it's basically after that massive adrenaline rush, your body just goes, whoa, like you've had a baby, and estrogen will drop massively. So
no wonder you feel low then, actually. That's really interesting with depression. When you just know that pick back up.
100% is linked, because then what do we do after that? You know, you're tired, so you're probably drinking more coffee. You're probably having cereal in the morning because you want something quick, sharp, and bit of energy buzz. You know, you might not be eating as well as you did. You certainly probably not getting as much rest as you normally would do. So all of this we know is a contributing factor to recovery and hormone production. So that, I think, should be more of our priority. But going back to what you've said, I don't think you can spot reduce. You can definitely do things to help you with your confidence in that area. So again, going back to, like, you know, deep core work, lifting weights, because I mean, you feel fucking badass when you do some weight training, like you do. Like,
and I don't know any client who's not enjoyed weight training once they got it. When they do it properly, they're hooked. And they'll go,
I agree.
When they put a bit of weight on the scale, and they're like, and some people, it pisses them off when they do that. And they're like, I've put a pound on, but I'm still going to go to the gym because I'm pissed off. And they use it, and then they feel better after. They're like, it's probably a fluctuation. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a fluctuation. I'm like, you might have put a pound on, but we've just put 10 kilos on your squat.
Weight training, man.
Badass.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it just all links back to this. The industry that we work in tells us that we should look the same throughout our entire lives, and it's just not possible.
Again, as you get older, not just pregnancy, but like people go, I want the body I had in my 20s, I want to be the weight I was in my 20s. I'm like, you were a different person back then. Like, same for me and you, Brogan. I mean, I'm in my 30s and I am nowhere like I was in my 20s. As much as people say I have changed, thank you. But physique-wise, or how I feel, the way you carry body fat, your energy, you're just a different person. Live a different life.
I mean, I used to live off KFC in my early 20s. I smoked. I lived off KFC. I used to party. I used to drink loads. And now I think, do you know what? I don't look the same. Certain things wouldn't fit me. But was I healthy? Nah. Like, did I eat well? Nah. So I feel much better now, even though technically, looking at me aesthetically, you'd think, gosh, she's put on a bit of timber.
It's not always, aesthetics not always linked to like health, is it? They also see that a little bit more. I'm not saying being too much overweight is great either, but there is a sweet spot. There is somewhere where you can sit in the middle. You haven't got to be super skinny or super lean or ripped to be healthy. You know, there's women who are probably maybe ripped as me, but they're not as healthy, actually, especially in the bodybuilding industry. You know, people said, oh, why do you do shows? I'm like, I like food too much and I like feeling good. I do not want to feel like shit on minimal calories. No, does not motivate me to look good. This is a byproduct of what I do. You know, and that's what, if you get into let's say, you know, postnatally as well, especially if you start getting back into your weights, because I know she's lifted weights before and she has back training, you know, you're moving, you're walking all the time, look after your nutrition, you're going to start feeling really good about yourself, about what the fact when my client said this the other day, she's had 2 babies, they're like, I think they're like 5 and 8 top of my head, might be wrong about that, I'm rubbish of ages, but she said like, because scale weight, because she's come from a swimming background, like swimming world, and scale weight, as you know, really impacts their actions for the rest of the day. I told her personally, I don't want you weighing yourself because of the impact of your mental health around it, actually. I need to focus more on what my body is capable of. And as a byproduct, my body will change with doing weight training. She loves weight training. Again, she buzzes after we finish the session. Each feels like shit before session. She's so happy with your clients. You know, it changes perception. That's what I'm getting at. Change perception, flip the switch. Instead of thinking I need to look this way, it's more how can I better myself for me at the present.
Yeah, and you know that the whole kind of mantra around this slimming world thing is a lot. I get it a lot with clients who sort of say to me, "So do you want me to weigh in every week?" And I go, "No." Like, no, because that would be depressing. Like, you know, even when I got on the scales, I had to say to a client the other day, I'd put on like 1 kilo in a week. And I was like, well, that's
because you're female and you fluctuate.
Exactly. That's not fat.
If you're going to weigh yourself, I'm like, do an average at least. And you need to give yourself 6 months and use that date as data, see it as data.
Consistency.
Also, it's a bit of a lesson learned. Like, I've had clients where they've lost nearly 3 pounds, would drop 2 dress sizes because of weight training.
Exactly. So yeah, and I think with anything it's just consistency. Like, I'm just going to finish with just like consistency, you know, give your ass a chance, as my mother would say. give your ass a chance to like follow the program, and that's how you're going to see results, and that's how you're going to keep the results, you know, rather than doing it for 3 weeks and thinking, well, it hasn't bloody worked, so F it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah 100%.
I think what we'll finish with it, I've got a random question. What's your best advice when it does come to prehab? Because I've got a lot of clients who do netball who are in their late 30s, 40s as well. What would you say be the best prehab advice you would give on this, especially being specifically female, like say with the hips and the joints, or like me who's doing jiu-jitsu?
Interesting question. So probably 2 things. Number one, most, I think, I'll have to remind myself what the percentages that I learn. I'm sure it's like 60%.
I never remember that.
It was in my biomechanics, but we're talking a while ago now, probably about 3 or 4 years. But I'm sure it's 60% of any pain felt in the body can be related back to the pelvis. So any dysfunction that might be happening in the hips, whether that's hip flexors, glutes, you know, movement, rotation, can be a contributing factor to shoulder pain, knee pain, ankle pain.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day. Yeah,
we did. Yes. So it is all integrated. So if you are experiencing any niggles, should we say, number one, they're not to be ignored, because this is literally your body saying to you, hello, something doesn't feel right. Pain is very clever, but it can also kind of inhibit us from then wanting to go back and do these things again. So it's very clever, and it warns us against things, but it also then puts the fear of God into us that the same thing's going to happen again with, you know, like, you know, when you tore, what did you tear the other day, your quad?
I think I had a grade 1 tear on my quad. Yeah.
And then, you know, if you probably went back to kicking again, and you were like, it might have been in the back of your mind that, oh shit, what if the same thing happens again?
I know, because I dislocated a kneecap on the same side.
So again, you know, your body's very clever. So definitely look at your pelvis first. So you could do things like glute strength, start to do some single leg stuff. So this
I can incorporate loads of that.
So single leg movements, you know, experiment with a TRX or with a bit of support, hold on
a TRX.
Me too.
Most underrated kick ever.
I know. It just sits there gathering dust most of the time. But start to pay attention to what it feels like on the left versus the right, because if you fatigue really quickly on the right, you're probably going to want to do a bit more on that to try and get yourself evened up. But yeah, I think definitely start training different. So if you do your own training, start doing some single stuff. You know, if you don't experience joint pain, that's still really, really beneficial. Hip stretching, and do your bloody stretching after your session.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, please.
I don't get me wrong. I know weight training, again, these guys know I'm a dork. That there has been science. So if you do a full range of movement doing weight training, it's actually just as good as stretching. But I think we do need to do a little bit more. And that's been pushed more, especially in sport world, particularly like those who play netball. I've got hockey players, a coach, obviously martial arts as well myself. To be fair, with my martial art, with Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you're constantly being folded anyway. But I have started doing more mobility work on a daily basis. It only takes like 5 minutes what I do, and it's just finding a little routine that works for you.
Yeah, I think actually what you said is bang on, to be honest, because I actually think sometimes the warm-up is more beneficial than the actual stretching at the end. You know, if you're mobilizing, like mobility
dynamic style warm-up, which I do all the time. It's just the basics, you know, arm circles, you know, the basic air squat, leg swings. You know, I do it in the kickboxers class. I did the same. Try to simulate the movements to what we're going to do in the session.
Exactly.
But yeah. Anyway, to finish, I would like you to promote yourself, Brogan. Where can we find you? When, you know, go ahead, promote yourself.
All that jazz. So you can find me on Instagram. I am Brogan_woman within fitness. You can find me on Facebook too. So I'm just Brogan Needham on Facebook, or there is a Women Within Fitness community on there, which is just a public page. So just search it in the search bar. I don't know why I went all Sean Connery then.
I'll put it all in the show notes. If you send me those little stuff, I'll send them over.
I will. Yeah. So you can join me on a few places. You know, we just talk about stuff, women's health mainly. But yeah, that is me. But thank you very much for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. I've learned a lot today as well, especially about when you've got too much body fat and diastatic recti.
I know.
That's mind-blowing me, that has.
Would you like me to tell you something else non-fitness related as well before we go? So you know, the other day you said to me that you're geeky.
Yeah.
So geeky. But yeah. So I love this, and I throw this out to everybody. But my mum actually made the costumes for the first ever Star Wars film. Yeah, there you go. She's shell shocked. I know.
Oh my God. She'll appreciate this. Have you not seen my Millennium Falcon wooden picture?
Oh, I didn't spot that in the corner. No, she's, yeah, so that's my bloody claim to fame.
Oh my God, that is fucking incredible.
Apart from when, so basically she told us that it was kind of this film that no one had ever really ventured into sci-fi before. It was kind of one of a kind in, you know,
it is, to be fair, it's nothing else that's, unless it's copied from it, kind of like ideas, but
yeah, she was like, it was totally new. So they actually went round saying, you know, would anybody like to put money into, have shares into the film? And at the time she was kind of 18 and newly married and didn't have the money, so was like, nah. And then Disney bought it, didn't they, for X amount of whatever, millions of pounds. And I looked at her and I was like, you bitch, you could have put money into that. So yeah, there you go.
That is very, very cool. I'm so impressed, honestly. I'm a bit starstruck now for
I'll
you.
tell her she'll love it. She'll love it.
Yeah, my favorite is absolutely, I mean, Padme Amidala's outfits anyways, it is, and Princess Leia's, of course, like, incredible. I love that. The fact she was my first crush, Princess Leia, as well.
I mean, who can blame you?
I know, especially yeah, and also she's obviously quite a feminist as well, and Carrie Fisher, she is as well. Outside of that, absolutely mind blown. That is very
there you go. I thought I'd leave you with that.
That's a great way to finish, Brogan. Thank you for that. We hope you enjoyed us today, folks. Any questions you want to send us, you find us on our socials. In the show notes, I'll put down both our socials, so you can always shoot us a DM. We're always happy to help. We never charge for information, folks. We don't pay for that for coaching. If you want coaching, obviously in support, then yeah, contact either of us if you want any coaching as well. Thank you for joining us. And again, if you could, please share this with one other person you think it will help. The more people this gets around to, the more people hope we can help, especially women within fitness. Thanks for joining us. And
thank you.
Yeah, and my words are gone.